Hello viewers, welcome to Core for Any. Medicare Cares App Backend API inside. We need to developing here today. Starting here the API developings. Today before we need to explain here the how to create here the API and to server gets here the request and to return this here the response. Explain in details. And today we need to start this here the app first needs here the login API. This login API inside we need to covers here the two scenario. First one scenario is a user already inside the database, and second scenario is user is not found inside the database. If you found inside the database, first of all, you need to check this here. This user are blocked or not. So need to identify. If blocks, then to return this here the admin blocked by. Please contact the admins. Like this, you need to returning this server message. If you not blocked, then to update this here the authentication tokens inside the database, and again you need to return this here the new payloads in response. And then after if here not database inside the record found, then to create here the new records and new registers need to sign up pro need to follow here and register all things with authentication tokens and to return this here the response. This scenario need to use today and to see here. Let's start how to write down inside the Node.js. First of all, we need to making here the API. We need to create here the app.post methods. We need to URL and codes. We need to methods. We need to create here. Now write down here the API and we need to give this here the names login. Maybe we need to create here parts as a app and we need to set here the logins like here. First parameters we need to call back inside request, and second is response. Give this here the short names and to callback functions to write down here. First of all, we need to see this here the which parameters we need to get inside the body. We need to set here. First of all, we need to call here the helper.dlogs and we need to print here response request dot request parameter we need to print here. Now we need to save these request parameters inside the one variables request object is equal to request dot body. We need to write down here. Then after we need to check this here the parameters inside gets here the all parameter needed are the user sending or not. So need to check first of all. Now need to call this here the helper dot dlogs and we need to check here not dlogs. We need to calls here another methods check parameters valids calls here. We need to first parameters need to pass here as a response objects. If here the missing parameters, then to this response to direct pass this here the data. Now we need to go request objects inside. We need to checking the body. We need to pass inside these variables. Then after check here the which key parameters are the needs. We need to first of all need this here the user types. Which type user are the logins and signups. Then after need this here the mobile code. Then mobile number. Then after need this here the OS type. Then after need this here the push tokens for the push notification sendings. Need to need this here the tokens push tokens API. And also need to need this here the socket IO because we need to connect it here the sockets and to need this here the socket ID need to use here. Like this we need to needs and to returning this here the callbacks. If these parameters are the founds inside the body, then to get here the callback blank callbacks we need to get. If not, then to directly server response this here the fails message and missing parameters need to returning here inside this write down here the helper check parameters inside the fails response inside need to write down here. Need to first of all the see this here the logics need to check every parameters one by ones, and if here not valid, then to directly pass this here the response missing parameters like here. If you hear the not debug mode, then to missing parameters need to clean here and to only pass write down here the missing parameters and bracket inside not value passed here. If here the debug modes, then we need to show here the which parameters missing and to like this sets. And if here the okay, then to return this here the callbacks returning here and we need to get this here. Now we need to away db.query. We need to write down here. Need to select and we need to check this here the user ID, and also need to needs here the status and user type. These parameters are the needs for the checkings. From need to user detail tables like here, and to check this here the where conditions we need to write down here. We need to check here the mobile number. Mobile is equal to question mark, and mobile number, mobile code is equal to question mark. Like two validations, we need to check here the conditions, and we need to pass this here this parameters is the array brackets request object dot mobile, and second one request object dot mobile code. Like here, we need to write down here. Then after we need to call here the error, and results we need to get here. Now we need to first of all the check here if any gets here the errors. Then to call this here the helper dot throw HTML errors. Need to pass here the error and response objects. If you directly send to response against, that's why need to call this here and to return these functions. Make sure you need to write down here these return functions, otherwise not given this here the server response, two times response files and one time into crash inside the crash log files. Please make sure you need to call here the returns, otherwise need to write down here the else part here like here. If you not write down here the returns, then to like this write downs. If you like write here the right returns, then to no need to else part need to write down here. Now we need to check here the if conditions. If result length is check here the length more than 0, means here the database inside the found here the records. Else parts create here the new record. Sign up and here sign in because already found here. Now we need to check here this user are blocked or not. So we need to check result first pair of values, and we need to check here the status is equal to 1, means here the block this user by admin. Block user. Now we need to return this response dot JSON, and we need to returning this here the brackets status, and we need to set here the double quotes inside the 2 because we need to always return here the string. Then after we need to write down here the message, and we need to write down here blocked by admin, please contact admin. Admin like here, so need to write down and returning this here the response, and else parts we need to write down here, and we need to create here the new access tokens auth token underscore token is equal to, we need to write down here create here the helper dot create request tokens and random generate here. Then after we need to again call this here the db query. Here need to write down here update, give this here the table names as a user detail, and set here auth underscore token is equal to question mark and comma modify date is equal to question mark. We need to directly pass here the now value and save this here the current time, date time, and we need to set here the where conditions, mobile and mobile code question mark and status is equal to 1. Need to unblock users, then to call here's. And we need to pass this here the parameters value. First of all, we need to pass this here the all tokens. Then after we need to request object dot mobile number mobile and request object dot mobile code, like we need to write down here. Then after we need to write here the error and we need to call here the result, like here's again. So need to copy these lines, check here the if errors gets, then to returning and response. And now we need to check this here the result affected row, affected row more than 0. Then to response here the returning users payloads we need to return. First of all, we need to write down here the one common functions, because we need here the many times this user data related to profiles. That's why I need to create one common function. So we need to write down here function get user details by user ID is equal to need to get here user underscore ID, and we need to get this here the callback events. We need to call here callback, like here the write downs here. Now we need to write down here the db dot query, and we need to call this here the select query select. Now we need to open this here the database and to go inside the SQLs, and we need to write down here select query. Unused parameters need to remove here. Need to maybe here's one parameters are not imports. Need to first of all the modify this database. Go structures here, and we need to find out here the columns after the mobile and to add one and to put this here the image parameters, because we need to forget create table times. Need to add here the profile image for needs here. Now need to modify these tables, and this is the alter table query. Need to otherwise need to export these tables against all tables and to put inside the GitHubs, and you need to against otherwise you need to directly add this only one columns modify, otherwise you need to delete all database and again you need to import this database. Now we need to go inside the SQLs and to call this here the query, and need to unused we need to need this here, no needs here the experience here, and is we need to remove here. Also no needs here the push tokens need to clean here. Verifications no needs, user types needs, status needs, created dates and modify not needs need to remove here. Like here this query we need to cut here, and now need to paste this here, and we need to write down here the user ID conditions. We need to put here /1 and need to get this here parameters. We need to pass user underscore ID and to return this here the callback errors and result and function. Now need to get here the errors. First of all need to copy here the check this is the error or not. Make sure you need to remove this here the response objects, because you need to not pass here the response parameters. That's why I need to removing here, otherwise crash here this Node.js code. Now need to check here if result length more than 0, then need to returns here the objects. So need to callbacks need to calls here return callback. Need to first parameters need to true, and second parameters need to returning this here the result object as a 0, directly pass this here. Else part need to call this here the returns callback, we need to set here the false and not bounce them to blank data. We need to pass here. Like this, write down here the functions. You need to calling here and use these functions inside this here the found updating any records. We need to write down here. Need to call this here the get user details by ID and to pass this here the result 0 and to pass here the user ID, and we need to return this here the callbacks is get, like here need to pass and to give this here the user result functions, like here's dot JSONs, and we need to write down here the status. Need to set here the 1, then after need to pass this here the payload is equal to u result. Maybe we need to write down here user object is good, u objects, and to directly pass this here the u objects in this payloads. Like we need to write down here for these functions are the dones for the if here the already exists inside the database logics are the dones. If not inside the database, first of all need to create here the authentication tokens. We need to write here. We need to again we need to copy these functions and to paste these here. Like need to write down here the db query and to call this here the insert query. Now need to again need to go inside the MySQL structures to write down here the local host, select here the database, Medicare's, find out here the user details, and go SQLs and to select this here the insert query. Here no need to pass here the these parameters names, also not here the email address and fees, latitudes, longitudes, no here inputs, also image not here. We need to authentication is verifications, user types, we need to and status like this value, and no needs here the created dates and modify dates. Need to remove these parameters and need to copy these functions like here and to paste inside the single quotes. Now creates here the question marks. So need to count here the columns 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. 9 columns need to give this here the 9 question mark space. Every 3 question mark we need to set here the space because we need to easy to identify here the counts, easy to counts. That's why I need to write down like this here. Now here also no needs here the user parameters need to remove because we need to not create it. That's why now we need to pass this here the one by one parameters. Request object dot mobile, request number mobile code. First one is request object dot mobile. Then after need to set here the request dot OS type. Then after need to request dot push token. Then after need to authentication tokens need to already create here above these variables use, and is verify is equal to once because already verify inside the Firebase for these mobile numbers. That's why I need to always set here the verify as 1. User types we need to pass this here the request object dot which type users, user type underscore type. Then after need to status 1 allow like this creating shares, and we need to get this here the errors and result block. We need to returning shares. Now if here the errors, then to put this here the conditions and return this here the response. If not error get, then to check this here result variables need to check here if found here the result and else parts not found. If found, then again need to copy here this line of code, need to get user ID by the records, and you need to write down here the dot result dot insert ID, insert underscore ID. Need to get this here the user data, and if you not get, then to return this here the response, set here 1, set here 0 in spell, and to return this here the message, need to write down here spell msg spells, and now need to save, and these methods are the creatings done. If you like this video, please give the thumbs up. If you're new user, so please subscribe my channels and press the notification bell icon. You can get every new video notifications and awesome content. If you have any questions, so please write down the comment sections. I will help you and sort out your issue. Everyone have a nice day. Goodbye and take care.